Hi, Democrats. Today is Thursday, September 7th, and it's time for the Chair's Daily Live. Happy Thursday and happy birthday, Adrian Andrews. Alrighty, so I've spent a lot of time talking about the superintendent of public instruction in the days of late, and you will be glad to know that I'm not talking about him today. Of course, he's done more dumb things, more things that don't help our state, but that's not what I'm going to talk about today. And I'm also not going to talk about the former president and all of his co-conspirators and the folks who are being sentenced to years and years for trying to overtake our democracy. Not going to talk about that. I'm going to bring our conversation a little bit more local. For as long as I have been aware, of course I've been aware, but as long as I've been politically aware of the Oklahoma County Jail, it seemed that it is a absolute nightmare for 22 straight months, ending taking a break in February of this year. There were actual deaths in the jail, and it just got to be so commonplace that, if you're paying attention, you have to be horrified. And then you hear about how there are roaches and bed bugs and all of these kinds of things, and it's just like, that's not humane. And we've got to do something about that in Oklahoma. And what made me think about this week was because of the former guy and his trial, and how they were talking about how horrible the Georgia, the Fulton County jail was. And they showed pictures, and it looks bad, but it made me think it's probably not as bad as the Oklahoma County jail. But I am not as versed on the Oklahoma County jail as I think I should be to bring it up in this forum. So I've invited someone to join me today who is versed, who has taken an active role in Oklahoma County, trying to make a difference at the Oklahoma County Jail, trying to make sure that we don't forget that there needs to be a change at the Oklahoma County Jail. So please help me welcome Mark Faulk from Oklahoma County.
Happy that you're discussing this topic. I watch people railing against Trump every single day, and all of that's fine. But at the same time, I keep thinking, in Oklahoma, we're not going to make a damn bit of difference whether Trump goes to prison or not. There's nothing we can do here about that. But we can do something about our local issues. And I think the heart of being a Democrat needs to be what we do in our own communities. And I hope that people don't forget that as we're getting angry over, what are sometimes symbolic anger as opposed to constructive anger. So, and I agree. The jail. There's an interesting thing when they were talking about Trump turning himself in and going to Fulton County Jail. CNN called Fulton County Jail the worst jail or the deadliest jail in America, but it's not. We are. We have a higher death rate than any county jail in America of the bigger counties. And that's absolutely horrific, and it's a national disgrace for us to still be like that. And people need to know this started when the jail trust took over. And I beat this drum all the time. But the reality of it is the Chamber of Commerce created the organization called CJAC, Criminal Justice Advisory Council. And it was headed by Clay Bennett, main owner of the OKC Thunder, who is lobbying for a new arena for us to fund right now. They recommended to the county commissioners to create the jail trust, and then they bypassed the state law that sets up a jail trust because you have to have a vote of the county. And I guess they thought they didn't have the votes, so they used a totally separate part of our state statute and created what's really supposed to be just a financial trust. So really, they didn't even use, they already bypassed this when they created this trust. And then they packed the trust, honestly, with billionaires. The first was chaired by Tricia Everest, who Clay Bennett, Trisha Everest, both gaylords, both billionaires, both heading these criminal defense, you know, organizations that frankly they're just not qualified for. They're just not. So it begs the question of why would we do that? And since that jail trust took over, we have averaged 14 to 15 deaths a year, and that's insane. It's just insane compared to a national average of around three, and the average of the sheriffs before the jail trust took over, which was between 3 and 4 deaths per year. So we've over tripled in deaths. Okay, you're muted. I unmuted to tell you that. So
Thank you. I'm sorry. I was trying to mute you and I muted myself. Um, because so many folks were dying at the Oklahoma County Jail, that's how I became aware of the Oklahoma County, politically aware of the Oklahoma County Jail. And the deaths weren't necessarily because they were being abused. Some of them were, but mostly because of the conditions at this jail. And my question for you, because you've been aware longer than I have, like, let's talk about what the conditions are.
I very strongly believe that they have purposely let that jail fall into an even worse state of disrepair. And I would compare it to what we did to public prisons when we tried to privatize them, and also what we do to public education when we want to try to privatize it. So we starve it out, we make it look horrible, and then we say, oh, look how horrible this is. Now the taxpayers need to pick up the bill for a brand new jail, or we need a basically private entity like the jail trust running it. We have no say over the jail trust. But the jail itself, it is a bad design. But to say that people are dying because of the building when we made a jump literally within a month from 3 to 4 deaths a year to 15 deaths a year, I don't believe that's accurate. We've been incredibly short staffed. They have let it fall into disrepair. They don't do the site checks. They literally just failed. I want to say their fifth or sixth Oklahoma State Health Department inspection just came out yesterday. They failed another one. Since the trust took over, they have not passed a single health department inspection. And in reality, as you know, some of the people in our groups say all the time, if in fact that were a business, they would have shut you down by the second inspection. If they came into a restaurant or a hotel and said, you have bed bugs, you have giant cockroaches in there, you have raw sewage on the floor, you have nobody checking on or caring for any of your customers or your clients whatsoever, they would have shut it down. So why this jail has not been shut down or taken over by the DOJ, I have no idea. I know that the DOJ has an ongoing investigation. We have fed, and by we, I'm working with a small, extremely grassroots organization called the People's Council for Justice Reform. We're so grassroots that we made the name up later after we'd been working together. You know, we're not funded, we are not beholden to anybody, so that allows us to be critical of the billionaires that frankly fund a lot of the nonprofits in Oklahoma. But the reality of it is, yes, it's a bad design, but the problems are problems of neglect. They've overburdened that jail. It actually was designed to hold 1,200 people. Now they say, oh, well, it was designed to hold 2,500. No, the 2,500 is the fire marshal rating. The actual jail is only supposed to hold 1,200. We've finally gotten it down to around 16 to 1,700. That's the lowest it's been in a long time. So in comparison, when we had 2,200 people in there and we only had 3 people dying in a year, we've reduced the population by about a third, and we now have 15 people dying a year. So, frankly, we do need a new jail, but we need a smaller jail, and we need a jail that does not incarcerate or house people with mental health issues. So that's one of our concerns. If we're going to build a new jail, something I wish every Democrat would call your county commissioner and rail about, do not criminalize mental health. So they've designed this jail to put a mental health pod in the jail. And our approach has always been no. Put that separate. The people in that jail are not trained to handle mental health patients. And secondly, we do not need to, as it says right across the screen right now, we do not need to criminalize mental health. Bypass, get the people who need help, drug and alcohol addiction, homelessness, and mental health. Fix those core issues, and we don't need a bigger jail. We could cut that jail population in half.
So I got a couple. So there's this whole talk about moving a jail, and they've already picked out a site which is next door to a school. That's a conversation that we don't have time for today. They're talking about moving the jail, they're talking about rebuilding the jail, and you're talking about housing folks who are dealing with mental illness somewhere else. What would you propose? Where are you proposing that they do that? And do you think that that's what we do when we build a new jail?
The free property, which was very suspect to begin with, up off of Kelly and Britton Road, it was actually removed from the list at yesterday's county commissioner meeting. So kudos to the people, because I need everybody to know this. When you go to these meetings, you make a difference. So many people went and raised a hell about that. It was right near the Harding School, was less than a mile away. Several churches were nearby. And again, it's on East Side, which, when I tell people that when we talk about the not in my backyard syndrome, that East Side deserves to fucking say not in my backyard at least once, to put it bluntly, because it's, I hate to say it, it's always in the backyard of East Side. So why don't we for once? And again, to their credit, the people who went to the board oversight committee meeting and raised hell about it got that taken off the list, and it was voted out at the county commissioner's office meeting yesterday. So that's a good thing. Keep knowing that if I would do it, frankly, about every site that's proposed. I wish that they would end up with nowhere to build it but in the existing location downtown. Now, if it were me, the simple solution would be to first build, because this money can also be built for a mental health facility. Build a separate facility. Build it, if necessary, next door to the City of Hope facility at 10th and Penn, which is already a nonprofit that deals with the homeless community and deals with a lot of our people. There's a massive empty lot right next to that. So build it somewhere like that, but build that first. And by building that first and helping people with the things, I say it like a mantra: drug and alcohol addiction, mental health issues, and transitional housing for the homeless. And now you've cut that jail population to, I believe, 900 or less. It could be even less than that, because we know a large percent of those people in there have mental health addiction problems, and many of them are in jail just for homelessness. So deal with mental health first, deal with drug and alcohol addiction first, deal with the homeless population first, and then see what we need in a new jail. And maybe we can build one that's smaller instead of larger. That would be my approach.
Okay, so let me ask this. So they just failed this health inspection. And so now they have a plan to eliminate the roaches and the bed bugs pod by pod by pod, which we all know that by the time you got to the second or third pod, the cockroaches and bed bugs will be back in the first pods. And, it's just one will be temporarily remediated, for a short period of time. Um, what do we do in the meantime? So if your proposal of build a new jail in the exact same spot, do we rent spot does Oklahoma County then rent spots for their arrestees, detainees from different counties, or how is that accomplished?
Well, for one thing, at the moment, there is property to the west of the jail that's empty. It is owned by the city of Oklahoma City. That's what I was told by Brian Mon. So, in my mind, again, if we would do the things to reduce the population first, so now the existing jail is only halfway full. We can do that, and that would be a huge step forward. And then go in and build as a weird example, when they redid the arena, Gallagher Iba Arena in Stillwater, they built the new arena over the top of the old one before they tore the roof down. So in my mind, possibly we can build half of the jail because we've reduced the population if we take the steps I talked about. And then we can tear down the existing building and finish the other half of it. I don't mind if they put it in a new location, but we already know that we have a problem logistically. I have two attorneys in the family. I won't name them because they're both very outspoken. One of them is a public defender as well. But both of them have said that they can't even get people over to the courthouse on time, and they're only 6 blocks away. So if you move that jail and you put it 20 minutes away or 30 minutes away or in rush hour an hour away, the logistical it just becomes a nightmare, becomes a logistical nightmare. Now, as far as remodeling the jail, we just found out yesterday that when they say we're going to paint, caulk, seal all of the holes and cracks, and we recommended them doing this 3 years ago. So too little, too late. Let's start with that. We still absolutely, like a mantra, say get rid of the jail trust, bring in the DOJ to clean it up and get it back on track, and then turn it back over to the sheriff. That's what I would recommend doing when it comes to running the jail. But we found out yesterday that they are nickel and diming this so much that they're not hiring a contractor. They're taking people who are in the Shine program, which is a community service program mandated whenever you work out a deal, run by Commissioner Brian Mon. Those are the people who are going to do the work to remodel the cells. And they're saying it will take 3 to 4 weeks per pod. And there are 28 pods. So I did the math. That comes out to a minimum amount of time of a year and 7 months and possibly over 2 years just to remodel those pods. Now they've also keep saying 3 to 5 years to build a new jail, and Brandy Garner, the CEO, said that about 2 weeks ago. Ironically, they've been saying that for a year and a half. So Sarah Banna's first comment was, well, when does the clock start ticking? We're still saying 3 to 5 years. So they're still saying that jail might not be built until 2030 or 2028. And that's insane. We have to do something in the meantime. But the idea of a project that's going to take 2 years to complete, when if they would just suck it up, maybe Clay Bennett, instead of sucking us dry for more taxpayer money, can write a check, and so can Sue Ann Arnall, and we can pay to have that done, and it can be done in 2 months, and we can improve the conditions there.
So we all know that if they're saying that it's going to take 2 years to do, it's going to take four weeks to have community service people do it, and that's a whole nother can of worms that we don't have time to talk about, that it will take longer than that. It's a lot. So first, I want to say thank you for coming on and making sure that more of us understood the complexities of what's happening at the jail, because, oh my word, it's a lot. Thank you for taking your time, but I promised you I wasn't going to keep you all day. Thank you for those of you who are watching, and I hope that this spurs action from you to reach out to your county commissioners and let them know what you think about what you just learned today, because they work for us. And talking to your county commissioner and letting them know what's going on gives them an opportunity to have a more informed response when they're meeting with their peers and making decisions that affect our community as a whole. All righty. Thank you all for joining me, and I'll be back here tomorrow at 4:15.